What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and today I'm bringing you a really actually unique video. I've never done this before, and I don't think a lot of people do this either, but I'm going to be doing a tier list not for the meta game, but for the decks I have featured throughout my time as playing or doing this channel, I should say, which spans about a few months now, or 4 months since I've really been getting into this. So these are the tier list is relative to the decks in it. So if I do put something in tier 0, it's not, I think it's tier 0 for overall Yu-Gi-Oh! Just for the decks that I have featured on the channel. A couple of them that I'm not going to put on here is going to be Dragon, Lincoln, and for Noble Knight. We all know that's going to be tier 0, obviously, so that's meta. None of these are meta defining at all. They're just decks that I think are really fun, a little more budget than most meta decks and stuff like that. So I just want to place them relative to where I believe they should be. That way you guys can get an idea of where I'm at with all these decks and everything like that, and you guys can understand kind of where they belong, in my mind at least. Obviously, you guys may be able to take these decks and just make them much better. But no other better place to start here than Data Escape, or Virtual World is called now. I'm going to go ahead and place it in Tier 2, and I know it just like topped in the OCG, but they have a very different format, and it just burns through card resources. It does have access to cards like Trishula and King of All Calamities, which are obviously very good, but it's just you have to win turn 1 or you lose, and I'm not really a huge fan of that just yet. Maybe I'm not playing the deck right. I know I'm for sure not playing it the best it could be. If I see some more interesting stuff about it, I'll make another video, but I made one a while back ago when these cards were first announced, just saying, like, yeah, I mean, get your own win condition type of thing. Not super impressed, but it's something to invest in for sure. Just being able to spam the field like that, and anytime a rank 6 comes out, a rank 3 comes out, a synchro 9, a synchro 6, all of those cards are on the table for this deck, which makes it very cool. Let alone whether or not it gets its own support, which is nice. I don't even remember what the appliancers. The appliancer archetype is gonna go in Rogue. I took a lot of heat for my videos I made about appliancers, but the thing about appliancers is just play the Cyberse deck. Don't play this. It's way more, the Cyberse, like pure Cyberse, is so much more consistent, so much more powerful. There's access to cards like the Codec and all that kind of stuff to maintain advantage. I mean, any deck that can make Link 4s really easily is going to be above casual for sure. But for now, I'm sorry to everybody who loves appliancers. I'm just going to put it in Rogue and go from there. This is one I featured a very long time ago. It's the Malefic Trap Tricks deck. And I mean, it technically does have the ability to break boards going second because it's able to summon, 4,000 attack monsters very easily. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it still is Malefic's. Going first is a really powerful deck, very similar to one I'll show you in just a bit. But this is one of the more fun decks I've ever featured. It's just, I haven't found a way, consistency-wise, to really make it fit all together. It's not like you can use a Lure of Darkness, which is very unfortunate. I've tried before, and it's not consistent enough to have a dark monster in your hand. Maybe that's another deck I'll revisit, because again, this is like when I first started the channel, this is what I went into. But still, it's a fun deck to check out nonetheless. The next deck I'm going to show you is Slifer here, but this is the Dark Magician Egyptian God deck. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this is casual. The strategy is pretty one-dimensional, but if you love summoning Egyptian gods, this is the easiest way to do it. All three of them, I should say, not just Ra. I just feel like if you have Ra in your deck, you gotta orientate it towards Ra. It's not something you can splash in. But this deck will be able to win you some duels and surprise some people. This would be a great one to take to locals if you know your locals isn't taking anything too seriously, which is nice. So yeah, I just posted that deck profile pretty recently actually, so go check that out and have a bunch of fun with that. Next we have the Uriah deck, and next to it is the pure Sacred Beast build, the control one. But this is the kind of almost like the going first Uriah, boosted up with Hyper Blaze type of thing. I'll go ahead and put this in tier 2 as well, although it could be close to tier 1. It's just it can't break boards going second like at all. If your opponent has like really big field presence, it's not going to do anything because you're running so many traps. By going first, this is definitely one of the best decks I'm going to feature here for you guys, which is interesting to say out loud. But if you're able to set like 3 traps and then you're going to draw off of whatever you get from the field spell, and you're going to have a big Uriah who is protection from targeting and destruction. it's a fun strategy. It's definitely a good shakeup because when you start playing control a lot, the pure build that I'm gonna tier in a second, you might get tired of it. And you're like, I kind of want to accelerate this a little bit. And it's a good change of pace, and the cards don't change too much outside of taking out hand traps and putting in trap cards is really different. But to talk about pure Sacred Beast, and I'm not even going to mention the fusion version. That's not even really its own deck. It's just kind of a different version of this one I'm talking about here, the control deck that I've talked about so highly for so much time. It's really good, man. To me, it is tier 1. I've even experimented with taking out Inspector Border, and if you guys are like, what the heck, Inspector Border, you should go check out the deck profile for that as well. It's so simple. This is probably the best deck, period. If you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh, if you're brand new, pick this thing up, go off my deck list, and I even did a budget version that you guys can get for under $100 for the main deck, the extra deck, and the side, which is crazy to say out loud, but it's true. This is such a fun one. It's going to stun your opponent. They're not going to know what to do. I think I run the deck a little differently. I run cards like There Can Be Only One. I don't see that a lot. And it's going to... You're able to run so many hand traps. The core of what you do is so small. You can just run all these crazy hand traps and then just take over the control of the game so quickly. Highly recommend using this deck. It's for sure tier 1 for me. Next is the Sacred Beast Draytron Hybrid, which sounds so... It is weird, but it is fun, and it actually gives you access to the extra deck, which the normal Sacred Beast build does not do at all. It's just... it's a little underwhelming sometimes, but when it comes together, and the fact that you can trigger like all these powerful monsters, I can't even think of the names now, but it's from the Rocket Structure deck that when it's summoned to a zone, it banishes all traps or it banishes all cards. Zeraboros is one of those. You're able to do that with the continuous spell, which is really cool. Not a lot of decks can honestly, they can summon the monster, but not consistently be able to trigger the effect whenever you want it to, or like during your own turn or during your opponent's turn. So that's why I have it here in tier 2. But sometimes you're just going to have like the Red Eyes Ritual pass, or maybe in one other form of interaction. And it's also not great with card advantage as well. But it does help with Fallen Paradise to help with that advantage. So it does kind of help the Draytron archetype in that sense. Another video and stuff you guys can check out. The next one I have here is Eldritch, although I'm going to combine it with Monarchs, because this is a Monarch Eldritch deck. I would say that the ceiling and floor of this deck are just about the same, although I would actually give a nod to the Eldritch side of it, just because you have access to powerful trap cards. And I almost want to put it in tier 2, or tier 1, but I'm not going to do that for now. A lot of these decks right here are just right in this tier 2, just kind of okay. Probably going to get you like a 42% win rate, which is not bad for a non-meta strategy. This deck has a ton of potential going first, because sometimes the domain lock is just enough. And when you also have the domain lock backed by these good trap cards like Hakero and Conquistador, you're really looking at a pretty coherent strategy. One that not a lot of people are expecting, and it just takes the control aspect of Eldritch and I think just elevates it to another level, or a different level, because I know the Synchro version was so popular for a while, which really made it a tier 1 deck in meta. And now that I don't have that, it's trying to find other ways. I haven't really seen the Dogmatica Eldritch as popular as I thought it would be, but this is a great way. It's a much cheaper option because you don't have to an extra deck, so it depends on how pricey the gold rare Eldritch is going to be. Because if it's a decent, let's say $10, you get 3 of those for $30. The rest of your deck's probably not going to cost you $100, which is cool. Next is DDDs. This is an interesting one, because if you're able to build the board going first, you're not going to lose. There's just too many forms of interaction. You're going to dominate your opponent, but it's so dependent on the combo and has nothing else going up for it. I hate to say that this is rogue, but again, some of these decks will give you a chance going second. Basically all the ones that I've featured in tier 2 outside of Uriah. But and especially if your opponent starts hand trapping you, you're gonna have a hard time. But it's still really fun. If you're a fan of DDDs, go check it out. I did a deck profile. I know I kind of forgot what some of the cards did, but I also referenced in that video that just go check out the step-by-step combo tutorial. And I've also featured it on Fresh Start Friday if you want to see it in action, which is pretty neat. Next is Sky Striker. And Sky Striker can go ahead and go in tier 2 as well. this Sky Striker Numeron, I should say. It's a very simple deck. It's another deck that I would recommend if you're just new to Yu-Gi-Oh. It's going to do a lot of unique interaction that your opponent's not going to be looking forward to, and if you're able to stun your opponent just enough going first, and I did just feature this on the last Fresh Start Friday, I hand trapped my opponent twice, and I just happened to have access to Numeron Network for the OTK, which is really cool. It's not really meant for the long game, although I did feature a match where I did actually last long enough for my opponent to deck out. So it's something to look at. And if Engage comes back, I mean, that changes the dynamic forever. That could definitely put this up to tier 1 without a doubt. That's just how powerful the card is. But for now, it's comfortable in tier 2. Very fun. You guys can go check out the deck profile for that if you want. Next is going to be Dark Magician Shadal's. Oh boy. It has access to so many powerful cards like Super Polymerization and the new Continuous Spell, which banishes from the graveyard or the field. Dark Magical Circles out there. It has, you can summon Dragoon in multiple different ways and multiple times. Yeah, I'm going to put it in tier 2 now. If I could find a way to boost the consistency, and this is definitely a deck I'm going to look back into, maybe to refine it a little bit. I do have most of these cards for a deck profile. I just never finished it out because I don't have Dragoon yet. Still waiting to pick up that card, and maybe I'll do the budget deck profile for this. I just want to find a way to make this a little more consistent, and I think it could actually be something. Has that natural ability to break boards with Super Polymerization. It's very reactionary, although the thing that really makes this tier 2 is going first. It's actually just not very great. Maybe be able to set up the Dark Magical Circle, combo, but that's about it to me. So that's the reason I have it in tier 2. Nonetheless, if you love Dark Magicians, this is the build to check out. Pures, I'm just not a fan of, and Shadal's just adds so much more to the dynamic that Dark Magicians have never been able to do before. Coming down to the last 3 decks here, I kind of saved these for last, being that these are kind of my babies, the decks that I've developed the most over my time with the channel, especially this one. This one has been going on since I started making regular content, and that's the Invoked Shadal Winged Dragon of Ra deck, and that's going to go ahead and go in tier 1 for sure. The deck is extremely simple. It's not one-dimensional, but it is kind of simple, and you're able to you're able to have kaijus in there and some hand traps. And Invoked Shadal in and of itself is a fairly powerful deck that it's kind of been forgotten and gone to the wayside. But it actually adds to the deck, and I think it's a better version of if you just played pure Invoked Shadals, in that your opponent may try to stop all these things you're doing with Shadals with Invoked, and then if you're able to just slap this boy down with a Hyper Blaze or a Hyper Cannon, excuse me, your opponent's dead. and really everyone's like, what is going on? I can't imagine anybody who plays it would expect this at all. And even if they are, they're going to have to stop you when you're doing your Shadal stuff anyways, because you're able to do some really great stuff. And you also have cards like Purgatrio, which are able to clean things up and just win you the games outright. So this is one of the most fun decks I've ever constructed. It's very much me and the way I construct decks, and I basically going against the mold and trying to do something special. So up next here we have ABC's Cyber Dragon. I am going to put this in tier 0. This deck is just so equally powerful going first and second. I've never constructed a deck like this before where I feel comfortable saying that. It really does not matter to me if I go first or second. I'm able to put up 2 to 3 negates going first, and I'm able to just completely bust decks going second, which is great. The only problem, and I don't know. There are problems. It's not an actual meta deck. I mean, I guess that's the real problem. It's just not consistent enough technically. But I do feel like in that 45 card deck profile that I did just yesterday, that I'm able to do it the most consistently. There's enough extenders that you're able to play through hand traps. You're able to beat Nibiru every once in a while, and your opponent will just never see it coming at the end of the day. And that's why I love it so much, and it's something I'm buying the cards for now, and hopefully I'll get some live duels out to you for that soon. But I've done a ton of gameplay videos on it for now, so if you guys are interested in seeing what it really can do against meta and non-meta alike, go ahead and check out those videos. And last, I have Raid Raptors. Raid Raptors is going to go in tier 1. Basically, the end board is your opponent doesn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's pretty good in my opinion. I've seen some wacky builds of this, but I'm staying consistent with the build that I have, in that using Rusty Bardige, if you get interrupted, or if you don't get interrupted, your opponent's just not going to break your board straight up unless they have Spear Mode. That's the only out that I know of. You know, your opponent's not going to be able to Dark Ruler no more you. They're not going to be able to evenly match you. They're not going to do... There's no Raigekis, if anyone's even playing that anymore. Their opponent's not going to be able to special summon. It's just... The Wind Barrier statue in Zexal, it seems too simple, but it's... The thing is, your opponent's not going to be able to do anything. You're going to be able to special summon and negate at the end of their turn where they don't do anything, just in case they set something, like a Mirror Force of all things, and you're going to be able to just negate that anyways. So yeah, I don't think I missed any decks. If I did, just go ahead and comment down below. Maybe it's something that you were really interested in. I forgot here, and I'll just tell you where I would place it in the tier list. But I think that was everything. That's quite a bit. It's kind of funny to look at it now with my own eyes to see how different it is from when I began and how much I've built over time. But looking forward, I do have plenty of more decks I want to go over. I think Salmon Grates are probably going to be next. It kind of sounds right in my territory of people don't think it's that good anymore, but it might actually be. We'll see. I think I'll maybe do a step-by-step combo tutorial, and then I'll do some gameplays. It's another deck very similar to Sacred Beast in my opinion, and you're able to put a lot of hand traps and just kind of go off on the few cards that you do own. But we'll see. I've never actually played them before, so it's going to take me some time to learn the cards and what they do. But other than that, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, I guess I'll just thank you guys again for 200 subs. Can't wait for the next milestone. I guess I'll call that 250. And I'll just keep creating content. And that's going to do it for today. Hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful night.